Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Blaine Edwards, and today we're joined by Eric Coley, CEO and co-founder of Indigo Protocol, an algorithmic and autonomous synthetics protocol being built on Cardano. So, Eric, brother, cheers for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be
No
here.
dramas, no dramas. Alrighty, to
Not at
start
all.
us off, can we do a quick little introduction? So, tell the podcast a wee bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, just me personally, kind of a little bit of my background. I've been an enterprise technology entrepreneur for 9 years, but consultant rather for 13. So I've been really immersed in the enterprise technology space. So naturally, blockchain technology was something that I came aware of, say, in 2011 roughly. Like many at that time, it was a little too crazy for me to get in on, but I've been an outsider until I guess you can call me in the class of 2017. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a classic story. People hear of it really early on for whatever reason, and they're like, "Oh, sounds cool," but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
if
That's
only we
very
could,
common.
go, yeah, if only we could time travel back and maybe make an investment decision. But anyways,
Would we still have our Bitcoin from 2011 or 12 though? Would we still have it? No.
true, true. Okay, so diving into the juicy parts. So Indigo Protocol. What is Indigo Protocol?
A complex synthetics protocol. I know a lot of people out there are like, what the heck is that? We have these different pillars in DeFi, lending, oracles, and synthetics is where we fall. So really, synthetics are an on-chain version of, a mirrored on-chain version of an off-chain real-world asset. It can be any asset, any market, but we create that on-chain version via the Oracle functionality and really give our participants the price exposure of that real world asset anywhere, anytime for anyone.
Okay, so synthetics, you deal with synthetics, and you kind of touched on
Yeah.
what a synthetic is, but maybe can you just expand a bit on what a synthetic actually is? Because that's going to
Exactly.
be the theme of today.
Sure. Like an example. So, this year we saw the price of lumber, for example, really make moves to the high side. And at that time, I think there would have been a lot of people in different parts of the world that would wanted to participate in the price action with, the expectation that lumber is going to go up. Well, if Indigo has, a synthetic I asset is what we refer to them as in Indigo world, synthetic version of lumber and I lumber, then that would give that Indigo protocol participant the exposure to that real world asset.
Okay, so why is that a good thing? So I imagine there are other ways that you
Sure.
could invest in, say, lumber or some other real
Yeah.
world kind of stock. What's the benefit of putting this into tokenized synthetic form?
Sure. Yeah, great question. I think what we see and what really is driving us and our team and our mission is really the fairness of or lack thereof out there right now. So we have um, an investment landscape in this world where half the world maybe is able to invest as an accredited investor. The wealthy in the developed world only seems like those folks are able to invest in various markets and various assets. Whereas with Indigo, creating a synthetic form of it, it really opens up, it breaks down the barriers. It opens up to the common person exposure to that real world asset. And really all they need is a smartphone.
Okay, so access is a big part of
Yep.
why you're doing this, and access is often a theme that is associated with many of these kind of platforms and protocols that are
Sure,
being
sure.
built on
Yeah.
crypto and Cardano is you're opening up this world to more people that currently can't participate in
Right.
that world. Okay,
Right.
so synthetics assets, it provides access to for people to participate in this thing.
Sure. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Who couldn't,
uh,
a user in Africa, for example, because Cardano in our whole ecosystem, we focus a lot on Africa because we see the developing country becoming more and more the share of wealth and from the developed world going to countries to the developing countries like Africa. So they wouldn't get to buy a Tesla stock or gold in some cases. This protocol or synthetics protocols will typically give them the avenue to do so without owning the actual real world asset, but really primarily getting to participate in the price action of that asset.
Yeah. Okay. So that's perhaps a distinction. When you invest in a synthetic asset, you're not actually investing in the asset. You're investing in. You're able to kind of play around with the price action associated with that asset.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's, I guess, and maybe now that we are all familiar with the metaverse and our digital identities in the metaverse, consider it almost like a synthetic asset is the metaverse identity of a real world asset. In a sense, I don't know if that's a great analogy, but perhaps that helps a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that makes sense to me. What I'm still trying to wrap my head around is the mechanics around how all of that works. So could you maybe step through the process of how a synthetics platform actually functions?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So yeah, so I mean, synthetics protocols will have a few key components, right? I mean, the primary function of the protocol, then there's an additional layer of criticality, which is the Oracle capability, right? So I think the Chainlink integration with Cardano was a very huge announcement for us, especially a lot of DeFi protocols that rely on Oracle, and then stablecoin. So there's a few components there. So if I'm, Eric who wants to come to Indigo Protocol, and I have, say, $1,000 that I want to mint, an I asset with. I open up a CDP with that stablecoin, or perhaps even ADA pair, depending on the early days when we launch and what stablecoins are supported. We're considering ADA pair too at launch. So open up a collateralized debt position at 150% of what the value of the I asset is as to what your stablecoin is worth or your ADA pair is worth. That's how you can mint and convert your stablecoin, supported stablecoin or ADA, to the I asset that you want to acquire. At that point, you have a few different options of how you want to participate in the protocol. You can simply take it to a supported and integrated DEX from there, start swapping that out for other supported native tokens, or preferably and ideally, you would take that I asset and deposit it in a stability pool. That's what helps build the TVL in our DeFi protocol. The stability pool then is also kind of what anchors the Indigo protocol. And the reward in doing so for that is obviously the shared liquidations of other CDPs that fall with under the 150% threshold. So that's kind of the beauty of the whole thing, how the mechanisms work.
Okay, so if I was to use the platform in the future, and let's say I'm a big fanboy of gold, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
If that's your flavor. How would that work? So if I wanted to say create $500 worth of the gold iGold, or
Sure. IGLD. Yep.
So I want to do $500 worth of a synthetic version of gold. I'd need to provide collateral, and you mentioned 150% or more,
which is a lot. Yep.
Yeah. So that would be
it's a lot lower than other protocols out there in the synthetic space. Yeah. For example, even on synthetics on Ethereum, who's a comparable protocol on Ethereum, in some cases their CDP threshold could be 700%. So you're putting up a lot of collateral to obtain that I asset, that synthetic asset. So yeah, sorry, but keep going.
Yeah. So $500 worth of synthetic gold, I'd need to provide $750 worth of collateral. Is that 150%?
That's right. Yeah,
it's early here, but the math's
it's 5 a.m. there, man. You get it fast.
Yeah, quick math. And that collateral, that's paid as a stable coin, did you say?
Yeah, ideally stable coin because they're stable. The risk with having ADA as the primary pair, even though it will be a supported pair, depending on really the stablecoin landscape. We're so new in Cardano and what's supported. We need to launch and we need to have supported pairs. So, but price fluctuation with ADA, right? It's not too drastic, but if ADA moves bigger to one way or the other, and it risks the CDP, it's not it's a riskier CDP position than if you were to have a CDP opened up with stablecoin, because stablecoin stable, ADA can fluctuate.
Yeah, and so that collateral ratio, is that kind of, will that need to kind of change if there's price action on either of the pairs? So for example, if gold somehow doubles overnight, which is obviously very unlikely, and then so the synthetic, so instead of having $500 worth of synthetic gold, you've got 1,000, but then the original collateral was 750. Do you have to then?
Man. You're good. You're in good shape. You're in good shape. Yeah.
But do you have to then increase your collateral ratio to ensure that that is remains at 150% more than the gold value?
No, that's where the liquidation mechanism comes in. So right now, that'll be an automated liquidation mechanism. So once the threshold is falls below 150% of your collateral, that's a forced and automatic liquidation. So yeah, I mean, it's with something like gold, it is relatively doesn't move too much, high or low. And actually, one of the things that we're looking to build in the protocol will be sort of a side tracking mechanism of things that are highly volatile at that moment for whatever reason, for whatever market news and geopolitical news there could be. Because frankly, if something is extremely volatile in its movement, it's probably an asset you would want to steer clear of opening a CDP on just at that time. So we understand the importance of that and building out that mechanism. So it's almost like a side view of some volatility. So.
Okay, so yeah, so that actually made quite a lot of sense to me. So because you have this automatic liquidation process, and there is higher risk if you create a synthetic asset that is highly volatile. Because of that, often maybe the use case is more for tokenizing maybe less volatile things into synthetic assets. Sure. But that's not necessarily the case. In theory, you could turn anything into a So let's play with that for a bit. So what can you turn into a synthetic asset?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that comes down to the governance. I think synthetics are highly really DeFi is all in the same boat right now from a regulatory perspective. But synthetics are what are getting the most attention around the regulatory landscape, simply because you saw Binance delist their tokenized stocks and things like that. So we're fully aware of that. But fully decentralized is the initiative there for protection, if you will. And beyond that, it's really the governance process. So we're going to come to market and launch with certain supported assets that keep us within the regulatory compliance that we need to be within. And then governance from there, any protocol participant, Indigo Protocol participant who wants to put up their INDY, it's very similar to Project Catalyst now. I mean, it's the largest governance function we have, I believe, even in the industry. You put up INDY to propose a new proposal parameter within the protocol. That could be whitelisting a new asset. That could be making some change to the protocol parameters, and then it comes up to governance. So governance is a huge element to our protocol and having newly supported and whitelisted assets, assets.
Okay. So just so I can wrap my head around it. So there's obviously this governance process where people need to vote on submitted ideas, but the ideas that are submitted, they have to be an asset that is part of a global market with a price feed that an oracle can talk to, right?
Yeah. We've joked around before. Our CTO Cody was joking around one evening as we were talking about the assets we're going to support at launch, and he said pocket lint, because really, I mean, you can conceptually, I mean, you can come up with anything. There's some protocols on Ethereum that are synthetic bananas. I kid you not. So really, anything in theory in the real world can have a mirrored version, mirrored synthetic version on a synthetic asset protocol. So it's not just stocks and equities and things of that nature. I think we really see there being anything and everything in the synthetic world one day.
Okay, but because you're mirroring another asset and there's a price associated with that, and to determine that price you use an oracle.
Absolutely. It's a critical functionality. Yep.
Yeah. So that mirrored asset would have to have some sort of price tag somewhere, right, for the
Sure.
oracle
Yeah.
to read. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for the
Some
banana, for
off-chain data.
example, for the banana, for example, that price feed's probably on the online supermarket or something, or that
Yeah, yeah.
you can
And,
talk to.
and, and, and in some markets, you have varying prices. So what also the Oracle functionality will do is take a median of that price, and whether that's in every minute price feed or in every 5 minute, whatever it is, right? So
Gotcha.
it'll take the median average of say 5 or 6 different data feeds and give you that more static, safe price feed. So the user is well protected.
Yeah. On the oracles, is there a preferred oracle that you're going to be using, or what's your strategy
Yeah,
around that?
this last weekend was really exciting for us, as obviously Cardano announced the Chainlink integration. We've been having discussions with Chainlink directly, when we're still in direct discussions with them as to how Indigo can help aid this integration. They reached out to us voluntarily a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, we know what you're doing in the space. We're intrigued with DeFi on Cardano, and we want to talk to you guys directly about your Oracle needs because we feel like we're a good fit." And surely they are. We had those conversations. They're ongoing still. Obviously, if IOHK wants to spearhead the integration dev, we'll go ahead and take a little bit of a back seat, but Indigo specifically will provide the resources needed to aid that integration, that development process, so that functionality is there sooner rather than later. But as we've told our community members, we're going to have a multi-pronged, if you will, Oracle solution. But Chainlink is certainly the most promising one. So we'd like to see that development kick off here really soon. And again, we'll help that process as much as we can and provide the resources in order to do so.
Lovely, lovely. You
Yep.
mentioned earlier kind of governance. Can you elaborate a bit more on the community governance strategy that you guys have in place for Indigo?
Yeah, that's a whole other set of the smart contracts that we have built and in audit right now. So governance is a really huge thing for us, operating as a true DAO. A lot of protocols, DeFi protocols, have really kind of inched their way into being a functioning DAO, whereas we're so lucky to be, late in a sense to the DeFi game in Cardano's DeFi space, but also ahead of the game in a sense that we've seen the playbook of things that have failed, right? So we've seen the successes and we've seen the failures. Whether you're a target by this regulator or you've done it right and they're not touching you, we've gotten to analyze and assess that whole landscape. So governance for us and being a DAO and a truly structured, recognized DAO in Wyoming is critical to us, because at launch we will be that. As opposed to have launched and then worked a couple years into our governance process, we'll have governance really on day one.
Awesome, awesome. Community governance is obviously super, super important. If you're trying to bucket yourself as being like some sort of DeFi kind of protocol, so
Yep.
I think I heard read on a tweet by DC somewhere mentioning something along that line. So DC is
Yep.
also the co-founder, isn't he?
The co-founder of Indigo. Yep.
This, yeah.
Yeah. Liquid's his baby, but yeah, no, we actually have a couple of co-founders on our team. Our core devs in Vietnam are also the co-founder of Meld as well. So Hai and his team are extremely brilliant, and we have I don't know 4, 5, 6 engineers that back him up that work on Indigo, and so we kind of have this all-star cast of team members, and Cody, our CTO, and Danny, our community manager. We've got a great team, and we're full steam ahead. But yeah, DC is fully aware and understanding of the importance of being a DAO, and have that governance element to the protocol, kind of the people's protocol, if you will. And so that's something we will have at version 1 launch. Those contracts are in audit as we speak. So.
Nice. I like it. I smiled at your earlier response when you're talking about we're late to the DeFi game in a sense, but we're also early in that we're bringing things that other kind of protocols on different platforms maybe are only just introducing. And I think that's a testament to kind of a fundamental part of Cardano strategy is it's very systematic, very, thorough in how they do things. And when they actually bring something out, I've considered all these possible kind of variations.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a fast. What's the quote that Charles mentioned? Sometimes the fast way is the slow way, something like that.
Yeah, he's referred to building on the island before and some of these other things, So, but yeah, I mean, I think things are really looking up for us. And you and I were talking earlier, but why Cardano too is really, I have never seen in this industry, in the blockchain industry, a community that is so humanitarian focused. Everywhere you look, it's just people that want to make the world better. And that's the essence and ethos of Indigo, is really freedom and fairness financially for all. Why should somebody in this country not have access to an asset that somebody in another country does? And it's only for the wealthy and the accredited. No, those days are changing. Those days are quickly changing. We're seeing
Preach
developed
it.
country, yeah, man, the wealth of developed countries is quickly going into the developing countries, and we want to be a part of that. We want to help even the playing field. And even though you don't get any share of the underlying real world asset, you're still getting to participate in the price action of it and have a little bit more control than you did before.
Yeah, that's the part that really excites me about Cardano and this whole crypto movement is that humanitarian approach and that impact approach about actually
Yeah.
changing the world to be something that is better. That's the part that like really that gets me going. And I kind of view it like you mentioned as this is a bit of an equalizer in this
Yeah,
game that we're all playing around the world. The game currently is set up unfairly for a lot of people,
it
and
is.
very kind of in unfair ways. And this is a technology that kind of can equalize that playing field a little bit, which
Yeah.
is super cool. Um,
Yeah.
Moving on to like tokenomics, can you maybe
Sure.
expand
Yeah.
on the tokenomics of the project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're proceeding with a fair launch concept for many reasons, but also, I just mentioned fairness. Well, what would then be fair about us giving early access to private money or private, and even private individuals, as opposed to just private VC firms? It's contradictory. So we're proceeding with a fair launch process, and so in order to acquire INDY, acquire I assets, you have to participate in the protocol at launch on par with anybody else. The tokenomics we feel are extremely fair. If you want me to expand on percentages to what certain
Or maybe just
things,
quickly touch on if you just go through that little donut chart of
yeah, the pie chart, yeah, we love
yeah.
that. So the community funds, that's really going to the DAO, right? So whenever there's a proposed 8% to the community funds, when there's a proposal that's approved through the governance process, if it takes funds and resources to make that change within the protocol parameters, yeah, that's what that's there for. The INDY liquidity providers and the I asset liquidity providers make up roughly 50% of all of the token share, and then the stability pool is another 15%. So that takes up a total of 73% of the total token allocation. We're on a 4-year schedule for all liquidity to be provided on market. A part of that too, at the end of year one, we're leaving this up to governance. Also, one of the first really cool governance things that we've opened up conceptually would be the DEX airdrop. So it's only 2%, but it's a fun thing. Everybody loves free stuff, right? So it's a 2% allocation for free to token holders, but on their voted and approved DEX within the governance process. As you may know, we're directly integrated exclusively with Sunday at launch. So we've been partnered with them for a couple of months now. We had some early on meetings with those guys. Saw they had a very promising path forward to being a very viable and promising DEX on Cardano. Well, we need a DEX. We're not a DEX. People who come to Indigo and mint an I asset or have INDY token and they want to go and swap that, they need to go to a proper DEX to do so. We will support other DEXs in the future. I think we'll have sort of a drop-down kind of functionality that has 3 to 5 DEXs that we support. But at initial launch, it'll be Sunday that we integrate with directly, and those integrations are already built. We work with them on a daily basis. But through the governance process, we'll allow the INDY voters, if you will, and people that are participating in that governance to vote as to who the DEX is that will receive that 2% airdrop. So that makes up the 75% of total token allocation that will be on market, and 25% is reserved for core team distribution. So
okay,
I think we have a very fair tokenomics schedule, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think a very fair part of that is even outside of how you divvy up the token allocation is just the way that you distribute it, and doing it where you earn through using the platform is I quite like that way, because it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship between the two. You strengthen and increase the health of the platform, and in return you actually get rewarded with the tokens.
Well, you'll see, the biggest majority of token distribution, 40%, goes to the asset liquidity providers. Those are the persons that are participating in our stability pools. So we want to heavily incentivize that participation, because once again, the stability pool concept is really what anchors the Indigo protocol, and that's where we're going to achieve a higher number of total value locked TVL, as you know. So that's really who we want to incentivize the most.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of using the platform and earning INDY as a reward, that using the platform means creating these I assets.
Yes, minting I assets. So that's, again, as we talked about earlier, that's where you convert your stability, your stable coin or ADA as a parent. So
yeah, okay. So that's how you would use it, and thus earn some INDY rewards at the same time.
right.
Cool. I just quickly thinking in my head what I could potentially create as an I asset.
We'll have, so we're going to have a lot of digital assets that are supported at launch. We have to be very tactical in how we go about launch, just because of regulations and how they're looked at right now. We're fully aware of that. We get a lot of inquiries about what we're doing to remain in regulatory compliance. We have a great legal team that supports us, that are securities attorneys. So we stay in regular communications on that. And it's really a matter of remaining compliant at launch. And then really from there, it's up to the full governance of the protocol. It's out of our hands when something's autonomous. It's out of our hands as to what our participants will provide to the governance process. So it could be anything you can imagine, really.
Gotcha. Since you brought it up, I know it's not a very sexy topic, talking about legal issues.
Sure.
And I don't even really know an easy definition of what a security is or isn't. But can you speak to maybe is INDY a security? So I've heard that question before. Again, I don't really know what a security is. And like your general strategy around navigating that legal framework.
So we've done no initial, we've done no ICO, no ISPO of the INDY token. It's all acquired through fair launch. We've advertised no price of INDY. We simply can't even guesstimate as to what that would be. The market establishes a value.
Gotcha.
Those are things that we're cognizant of and aware of. As regards, it seems like what the regulators want to determine as a security changes all the time. I mean, they say, well, if it mirrors this, then it's a security. So it's really kind of this moving target. So even I can't even explain that too eloquently and definitively, because even for us, it's changing a lot. So our primary focus is to be fully decentralized, front end, Oracle, obviously the autonomous back end of the protocol. So and then really have nothing maintained in-house, and that's our goal. That's what we will achieve. and that's our way to remain in compliance.
Okay.
It's an evolving regulatory landscape. I mean, we just have to evolve
Mm.
and flex as best as possible. I think what we've seen with, like, say, the likes of Uniswap, for example, whenever they had to modify their front end, well, that's because Uniswap front end was maintained and managed by Uniswap Labs out of Brooklyn. So there's some common misunderstanding there that they had to go alter their whole protocol so as to delist and not support tokenized stocks, for example. That's wrong. The backend still does, the actual protocol still does. They just disallowed access to them through their front end, which, well, if you have a decentralized front end, that's really one of the biggest pushes now we're seeing in the DeFi space, so as to not have that risk layer, if you will, as an easy target. If I'm Indigo Labs and I'm managing my front end on AWS infrastructure, I then become an easier target. But if you will, right? So having decentralized every element and every layer of your protocol, I think, is critical and key for us. And I'm glad that, like I said earlier, we have that playbook now. We've seen what have been the reactionary risk layers of other protocols and what they've had to go and modify or tweak based on certain elements of their project and protocol. So for us now, we've taken all of that, we've noted all of that and said, okay, where do we go in and make sure that we don't do that? So I'm very fortunate and glad that we have those examples now.
Gotcha. The roadmap. So smart contracts are now live on Cardano. What's your roadmap like for Indigo? When do you anticipate kind of going live on the platform? And what are some kind of key milestones coming up?
Yeah, well, we're in probably one of the most mission critical milestones that we've had on our roadmap, and that's our audit. We're in that audit as we speak. We're about 2 weeks in. We'll be 2 weeks in on Friday of this week. So that's a huge thing for any protocol, right? To get past that audit and to know that your code checks out, to make any of the tweaks and changes of the bugs that have ideally been found. You don't want to go to an audit and have it be perfect. There's things there that need to be fixed and corrected. So, and that's the purpose of those things. So we're in that as we speak. The testnet, which we show in our roadmap, was a private testnet. So to make sure that our functions check out, we achieved that before we went into the audit. And that's where we're at right now. Frankly, some protocols have sidestepped PAB and built with some private testnet nodes. That wasn't us. We are building with the PAB. I think one of our early demos going back to, I want to say, May of this year, was probably one of, if not the first in the whole ecosystem with the first iteration of PAB, accompanied by our web demo. So, we're building with the PAB. So we can build only with what the PAB toolkit gives us. So of course we are anxious for additional capabilities and toolkit within what IOHK has given us. So yeah, I think, all things keep moving ahead in a productive and efficient manner. We're definitely a Q4 launch, as we've stated in all of our socials lately. And ideally, we'd like to see that before the holidays.
For the holidays. Nice.
Yeah. And the holidays, I think Thanksgiving is one that we're shooting for. A lot of folks are talking October right now, but I think just to be realistic, I don't want to steer people astray. I think upwards of around Thanksgiving would be very realistic.
Thanksgiving, when's that?
Well, this year, yeah, I guess right here in Australia. Thanksgiving for us in the US is the 25th of November. So
okay.
Sorry about that.
So as a rough kind of target, that's what you're working towards, hopefully. Okay. Yeah, nice, absolutely. Exciting.
At least for a V1, right? Even if it's a slim V1, we're like any protocol, we'll have future versions, future enhancements, different features. Those are all things that we're thinking of, right? I don't think any technology was ever delivered to the world with its be-all, end-all functionality. You want to save some bullets for later, if you will. And yeah, so that's us as well. We're thinking of ways to innovate, and so there will be future versions, but at least to get a V1 out there and launched along with some of our other partnering protocols I think you'll hear more about that soon. We have some exciting things to announce about that, aside from who we partner with. I think that's all public, but kind of partnering, the ones that we partner with, kind of all aligning a similar launch timeframe. It does no good for Sunday Swap to be launched out there with no native tokens to support, right? So we're trying to align this in a manner where there's some consortium of us that are aligning launch within a similar time frame. So that's something the community can expect.
Exciting. I know you guys have a couple of Catalyst proposals submitted. Do you want to speak about what those are?
Yeah, I would love to. Some shameless plug of Catalyst, right? I probably mentioned already. So we're fully bootstrapped. We have not, because of the fair launch process that we've committed to. We're in-house funded. That's obviously proposes its challenges, but Catalyst is a great opportunity for us to not only get exposure to Indigo, but to show the community of the things that can benefit the entire ecosystem. So we are entered into Fund 6. It was our first entry into Catalyst. And watching the Catalyst growth, the community growth, round over round was just really astonishing. It was really cool. I think Fund 5 had 300 something proposals, and now into Fund 6 it's 800 plus, so almost tripled from Fund 5 to Fund 6. It's awesome.
Crazy.
I think there are 35,000 participants in Catalyst as far as everybody who's registered to vote and everything. So so now voting opens up on the 7th. Registration is open to register to vote for Fund 6. We have 2 proposals, one of which is in the Scale Up DeFi Challenge, to bring synthetic assets to Cardano. It's a benefit to the whole ecosystem as it relates to DeFi, because we're helping bring another pillar of DeFi to the ecosystem. And obviously INDY and I assets, if they're to be traded on other DEXs, that helps the liquidity of the DEXs, the volume of the DEXs. So bringing synthetic assets to the whole ecosystem is the value prop there. The proposal specifically is for our security audit. So again, we're underway with the security audit, but we'd love to get that expense replenished because it's expensive, $60-something thousand US. So, and then the second proposal we have is in the dev ecosystem. So as what we're proposing to build there is a SDK, a PAB SDK, TypeScript SDK. So Cody, our CTO, has seen the value in having something that helps enable the back end with the PAB. So it's been a limitation of ours, and there's some other similar proposals in there with a similar build, not quite exact as ours, but obviously that to be something that's open sourced. And I know the assessment phase just completed, and we scored over a 4 on both of our proposals from the community advisor assessments, which is very promising for us. But now that registration to vote is open, we'd love to get exposure to that, and then voting itself actually begins on the 7th, which is, I believe, next Thursday or something like that. So,
definitely register. You can register now. Voting begins soon. Project Catalyst is such a great. It's one of those things. It's like a gem of Cardano that like no one outside of Cardano even know about, and it's massive.
There's so many brilliant business people and developers and just brilliant ideas that those ideas maybe wouldn't get to see the light of day without a community funded initiative like Catalyst. And that's what I love about it. People out there that can put together a good proposal with a great beneficial enhancement to a specific vertical within the ecosystem or something. That's its beauty to me, is that there's people out there that otherwise wouldn't get a chance to get their project to the light of day, and Catalyst will help enable that.
It's growing exponentially, and the thing that really excites me about Project Catalyst is it's introducing this new kind of governance model, and a governance model where people actually want to participate. I've told the story a couple of times where the very first time I voted in Project Catalyst, the voting opened up at whatever time it was, and it was like 3 a.m. my time. And I remember setting up an alarm to wake up and vote. And I kind of just laughed to myself the next day because no one's ever doing that voting in the real world. If the voting opened up at 3 a.m., you're not going to wake up at 3 a.m. to go down to your booth and cast your vote. Where I was that excited that I set an alarm, and that just speaks volumes to, I guess, fundamentally how things are shifting. But
and do it with your mobile phone, right? I mean, download the Catalyst app and you're good to go. You wake up, do it in your sleep, and then ready to go back to bed.
I know you're busy. We've got just pretty much the closing questions now. So
sure.
How can people connect and support what you guys do?
Thank you for the opportunity to disclose that. So we have, I think we're most active on our Twitter and our Discord server. We do have a Reddit channel that we post a lot of our Medium articles and such too. So we try to put out, our tokenomics and fair launch. We did a Medium article about the partnership with Sunday Swap. We did an article about things that are really worthwhile for everybody else to know in the Medium platform. So, but we have Medium, Reddit, Telegram. But I think again, the most common and utilized social media platforms would be the Twitter and Discord, of course. So
okay, awesome.
I can provide those links as well if you want to drop them somewhere. So.
Yeah, obviously we'll add all those links below along with the Catalyst proposal links as well.
Yeah.
The final question, and I love this question. What excites you the most about the future of Cardano?
That's a very loaded question, Blaine. I see because there's, frankly and honestly, there's just so many things, but I really see Cardano as, there's not going to be one chain to rule them all. We're all going to coexist. But Cardano, I believe, is really going to drive true mass adoption for the regular person. We've seen what they're doing with Ethiopia and other countries in Africa, and all through that humanitarian effort, the thing that we were talking about earlier, that is what is going to help enable Cardano to bring true, I think, mass adoption to just the real world outside of, it being an investment vehicle or anything like that. And then obviously to the mainstream, as far as, we saw the Dish announcement, corporate, what are they, Fortune 250? So huge adoption within the corporation landscape as well. So I just really see Cardano pioneering that landscape, and that really excites me. And I can't even keep up with the CNFT space anymore. That thing it's just blowing up, and I'm proud of all of our partner pioneers who are really leading the charge there. It's really cool to see. So the sky's up for Cardano in all ways, man.